Okay, Gary, you're getting permission to join in early.
Oh, okay.
Before he comes on, ask him who won the league in the 8-a-side oval tournament for our age group.
Well, you know, it's so ironic.
No, it's a yes. It's an easy answer, Gary.
My side was unbeaten. We didn't lose a game.
Who won, Gary?
And I almost beat David. He would have probably reported me to the domestic violence unit. I almost beat him. It was a draw. So, congratulations, Gary? David. David's team beat us by 1 goal difference.
Who won, Gary?
I get a bad connection on it. Congratulations, David. We'll take it in the knockout.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Yeah, Gary. So what happened there?
Oh, Gary, I honestly can't recall that one. But what usually happens is every time, Masha, and good afternoon, everyone. Okay. Unfortunately, I have tried constantly. It is very unfortunate that the PCA, I don't want to try to devalue what the PCA should be, but the toothless bulldog is what is killing the value of the PCA. The PCA should be similar to the internal affairs in the United States. So they will do exactly what David said. You give it to the commissioner. The commissioner, I have no authority to investigate. It will be given to another body. And at times it can be himself unto himself. So I cannot take action until the police, whether it is the police complaint authority, division, or whoever would now look at what was compiled by the PCA. If they decide to override it, or they decide to state that there's not enough evidence, it then becomes, and David and Michelle, you all could interrupt at any time. It means that a police officer who's a batch of another police officer, and I'm not saying that is done constantly, but it is inappropriate that you have an external body investigating the police, and then all they do is to submit the file and findings back to the police for the police to decide whether they should go forward.
But in the report, the report is quoted as saying that the Police Complaints Division, separate to the Police Complaints Authority. So I'm assuming the Police Complaints Authority is the independent body. Police Complaints Division is inside of the TTPS.
Correct.
So, David, when you speak about the tribunal, I'm assuming that is where the Police Complaints Division would have taken over. And they reported saying that there was not sufficient evidence. So, Gary, is it that you're saying...
No, they didn't say, but just to make something clear, they didn't say that there was insufficient evidence, you know. What had happened is that it was clear that there was a passing of the buck. So, and then to use layman's terms, the junior officers claimed that they didn't know that they were supposed to investigate the matter. That is what the evidence says, right? And this is now a matter of public record, so I'm not prejudicing any proceeding.
No, it's there, yeah.
It's there. So they passed the buck to say, we didn't know that we were supposed to do X, Y, and Z. Now, let me remind everybody that the allegations included threats and the possession of a knife and a firearm. And all they elected to do at the end was to warn the gentleman who subsequently went up the hill, shot the girl, and killed himself. So there was a passing of the buck, and then eventually the PCD found that the senior officer who was supposed to assign the matter and have supervision of the matter was not to be blamed, right? So
the reason I used the no evidence is just a quote from the report. Regrettably, the Commissioner of Police took no further action relative to the foregoing, as the Police Complaints Division concluded from their investigation that there was no evidence to implicate Acting Corporal S for wrongdoing.
Right. So what happens is we do our investigation, and that's what Mr. Griffith is referring to. We do our investigation. We do a full investigation. The matter is assigned to the commissioner. We send it, we refer it to the commissioner. The commissioner then has to hand it over to that division. What then happens is, to my mind, duplicitous, right? They're repeating the work. They then go and do their own investigation, and that is brother investigating brother. That's what we're talking about, right? The police taking the PCA's independent file, holding the independent file, and then doing over investigation. So after the PCD did their own investigation, brother investigating brother, they found that there was nothing to send for for the tribunal to look at, because this, as far as they were concerned, the senior police officer was not responsible.
Gary, as the commissioner of police, is there nothing you could do, or is that overstepping?
No, it would be an overstep. There were many situations where things would be taking place, and anytime I try to overstep my authority, it will have interference. So I have to be very careful not to get interfere in that aspect of as the office of the commissioner of police. But it was really ridiculous. You have an independent body doing a thorough investigation. They come up with findings, and then you know put it upon yourself to say, well, I don't think it is enough. And then A blames B, B blames C, which is the reason why that gender-based violence unit was formed, to deal specifically with the things I heard Michelle speaking about. We have a situation, before I became commissioner, the stories that I heard of women turning up in a station, and because they were assaulted, they were being chased out of the station improperly dressed. Others, after being raped, you stay on a bench for 20 hours waiting because you can't take a shower. Then you have persons who go into stations, and then if the police officer himself is an abuser, he's telling the woman, well, why you reach home 2 o'clock in the morning, why you didn't cook? And then sometimes when they go home, the person who has been accused already knows, because the police officer contacted him, hey, you know, your wife just reported you. The gender-based violence was formed specifically to put an end to that, which is why you'll see 2019 to 2021, there was hardly any concern. What happened is I brought in Giuliani and partners, brought in experts to show us how to form that unit. We formed the online reporting, the police app. We started doing we come to your home. We don't want, when you're beaten or abused or raped, you have to go to a police station where an officer is not trained. All what has happened now is that has totally collapsed. We had the Clear Guy Island. We had officers trained to understand the confidentiality, the sensitivity of such a thing. People get seniority, they get promoted, they all move out. So the majority, when last have you heard of the gender-based violence unit? Not really for the last 2 or 3 years. People don't even know how to get how to contact
well, to interrupt you, there's part of on part of the report, it says that to date, no response from the gender-based violence unit to these requests. Page 5, right? So Michelle, David, Gary, is the next fight to give the Police Complaints Authority, well, teeth, as Gary would call it?
Well, no, you see, the thing is that, as Michelle says, and we agree, that we have done our job. We have done what the Act says we have to do.
So maybe the Act needs to... So you spoke about, you know,
no, well,
now...
No, hold on. But Marsha, hold on. If it is that we make our referral, the police have to do their job. The DPP
but they're not.
Well, then it's not our fault. Don't blame the PCA.
I know it's not your fault.
But everybody says it's the PCA. We have no teeth. But we do what we have to do under the Act. We cannot go outside the Act. Otherwise, we'll be overstepping our bounds. We have done what we're supposed to do. If the police supposed to do what they're supposed to do, it would work. Understand? We are just part of a relay team. But if they are not taking up the baton, well, then it's not our fault. We have passed it on.
David, I don't think it's blame. What we're trying to say, what I am trying to say, even as a politician again, is that it is unfair to the victims because you're doing your job and it is not going through, no fault of your own, but because it's himself onto himself. What should happen should be equivalent to the internal affairs in the United States, where you're not just somebody who will facilitate and compile findings, but you have the authority to be able to implement it. And that is not what is happening. So you have done your job, but it is not being completed because I see probably flaws in our legislation, that you have this external body doing all the excellent work, and then it will just be sidelined. And that is why, when I was commissioner, we will be meeting once a month, dealing with, and with that, the persons in the different police arms of the police service understood that the days of ignoring the PCA, their findings, they will be communicating with me regularly, and then I will go to them, what is the hold up in this? What is the situation with this? And it shouldn't reach to that, with the PCA having to meet the commissioner to find out that we are bad boys, not doing our job. They should have the authority to immediately implement it, whether it means that the PCA will have an investigative arm of the police service with officers who are now assigned to the PCA separate and apart, which is similar to the internal affairs.
Right. Now,
I think that's what I'm asking. Is there, so you're saying that, you know, you are obviously doing your job based on what the Act requires. What I'm suggesting as a policymaker, should we be changing the Act so that after you've done your investigation, because that feels almost like a commission of inquiry, you know, you come, you do all the work, everything is presented to you, you have the file in front of you. And now the TTPS, who's the same TTPS that we're complaining about, who didn't do their job in the first place. That's what your folder says. Your investigation concludes that the TTPS didn't do their job.
But Marsha, the TTPS for example, that's the corporal and the sergeant on the ground not doing their job. They have the seniors, they have the ACP, the DCPs. They have them to make sure that they're doing their job. So, they are the ones at fault. You understand? So they're the ones that should be disciplined, or there should be a body, or there should be a mechanism in place for them to be responsible. You understand? So the PCA has done.
I thought that you were the mechanism to make them responsible, to make them do their job.
Yeah.
Because it feels as though, from looking on, right? Why would I want to come to the PCA? Why would I want to take the time to make a report to say, listen, and I'm going to give you a real story that's happening, right? It's happening, so it's still happening. Gary, I was on vacation and I'm messaging saying, Gary, give me a number for somebody in the gender-based violence unit. Because this lady, who years ago, her hand was chopped off. So this is somebody, her husband is still harassing her. And she cannot get action. And she reached out to me because, well, I'm back on TV now, so people see. And she said, can you help? He is living in the house. They're not removing him because the restraining order hasn't been served. The rent coming out of her pocket. She don't know what to do. She's going to have to go back home soon because she can't keep just, taking room by somebody here, somebody there. And she doesn't have money to pay rent because he's living in what she paying rent. And she's going crazy. Months. Nobody has served the restraining order. Months.
So right. So to answer your question,
to have a private person find it, because that's what they always say. Well, we can't find them. You pay a private server, they find them in less than a day. Why would they come to you to say, I'm filing a report, blah 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 blah. You guys do an investigation. The investigation finds that yes, we know the officer didn't do his work. What's next?
Because we are the only body in Trinidad and Tobago that could collect that evidence in an independent manner. We are the only people who do that. So when PCD is compiling their information, there is no way that you can say that process is independent. As a matter of fact, I would even throw out the challenge as to whether or not it's even transparent. PCD had the evidence by the PCA. It's the way that they interpreted it. It's the way that they viewed the evidence. And that is where the problem is. They still have a dated, outdated, tone deaf, and now illegal and wrong interpretation as to what their role is. So the evidence is there, The problem is, what are you doing with the evidence? And the court has now made it, they put it in black and white. If you didn't understand the law before, you understand the law now. There is no way you could look at that evidence and not discipline those officers. And that is where the problem is. The PCA is the only, but the PCA is the only body that is collecting that in, and we're not holding papers to anybody. We have no bias. We just doing our work, and when we finish our work, we send it to them. It's the people who are making these decisions who don't understand that if these officers are not disciplined, then the citizens are not going to get the help that they need. And we have to ask ourselves, why are we not disciplining? Why are we afraid to discipline these officers? Recently, the TTPS adopted, I know Mr. Griffith is here, so that's why I'm saying recently, not him. Recently, they adopted the stance that they would train their officers. Now, I have to say that we welcome the training. We agree that you can have training. We always support any initiative for training. But without a big stick policy, how is this going to work? And why is there, I don't mind having the conversation, but why don't you want to apply a big stick?
And Justice Frank C. Prasad, it wasn't about domestic violence, but I mean, there are so many cases before the court where the unfortunately, the TTPS, that officers costing the state money. And Justice Frank Sipasad had actually said that it's time that police officers pay out of their own pocket. You know, I have a matter before the court. Gary was the commissioner of police at the time, and my constitutional rights were ignored. And you're going to be before the court, and when I win, it's not the officer. So it doesn't matter. They can do what they want because they're not coming from their pocket. They're not getting a day off. It matters not. So I agree that there has to be some consequence that the actual officer feels. But what I'm asking is, and you've said it, so nobody here is saying that the Police Complaints Authority, so the PCA, isn't independent. No one is challenging that. But what I feel is it's very similar to what we saw with the Commission of Inquiry into Paria. It's clear, the evidence is there. An independent body has made the suggestions. They have formalized it and they have said, this is what we believe needs to happen. But all it is it's like the UN writing a strong worded letter to a country.
No, I think there's one difference here with the PCA to these commissions. Whereas in the commissions, you have retired judges, you have civilians you hire, and they come up with findings. They just compile stuff. And that is why whether it is the Scott Drug report, the Stanley John report, the Judith Jones report, all of these things is based on persons who do not have investigative training. The PCA is not like that. The PCA has persons suitably qualified.
Even more so.
Exactly.
Even more so. So after they've given, so the recommendation shouldn't be, if they give a recommendation to the Commissioner of Police, then the recommendation should almost, with your eyes closed, happen.
Correct, but it's not.
Be a need for another investigation. Yeah. So correct. How do we? So is that a legislative issue? And that's basically what I'm asking. Because we need to move past saying, well, this is what happens. What we need is, it should happen. So the PCA did their job. They gave you a file. They did the investigation and they concluded. They gave, let me quote it just to make sure, right? What is, no, not this one. Let me find the page. What is the page?
I think it was 7 or 8.
Okay.
I like that you all know the page better than me.
Yeah, because I
don't want to volunteer the page. I want to see where you're going.
Page 7. So the PCA uncovered critical information which demonstrated that there was an inaction by the police relevant to the reports made, and recommendation was made to the Commissioner of Police in April 2019 for disciplinary action to be considered against the defaulting officer. There is nothing there that says the PCA recommended another investigation.
So that's how it
was. There was a clear recommendation.
And it's
so how we reach to the point of another investigation?
Because the PCA doesn't have the actual authority to go through the final process of charging, which is
and that's why I'm asking if it's a matter for the policymakers inside of Parliament to bring a bill before the court to give the PCA something else. That's where y'all will have to come up with the jargon of it. I am just a woman who want to see other women not get beaten and stabbed and whatever. So y'all could come up with whatever the language is. The PCA did their job. They investigated it and they made a clear recommendation. We need to see and we need to know what's the next step from that recommendation. And David, with all due respect, I don't want to hear Lady TTPS do their work. They're not doing their work. So we need something. We need the parliamentarians now to put something else in place to force the TTPS to do their work.
That's it. And it's not just gender-based violence. I have been, my biggest battle was with gang leaders. You know, my biggest battle was the Police Welfare Association, because they will fight me down for every single time I am trying to clean up the image of the police service. I got it at 14% public trust. To get it to 59%, my biggest opponent was the Welfare Association. Every time I tried to instill systems to measure their performance and make them accountable, it was a pushback. And you'll see it. Police officers will drive a vehicle going 110 miles an hour without any reason for a response. Crash into somebody, And then the police welfare, and when I push to say that these people should pay for the vehicles, they should be held accountable, the Welfare Association will say it's going to open up Pandora's box. The only way to deal with it is have an independent body, not just do the investigation, but have the authority to go through the final process of the justice system, similar to that of the police, which is the charge.
David, do you agree?
Definitely.
Do you think the PCA can do that? So if we lobby, if we go to, we put Gary as prime minister or whatever, something so, but whoever knows. I started off saying I can say what I want because I'm not trying to be elected for nothing, but if we can get the parliamentarians to bring legislation, do you believe that that's the next step, that we need legislation to maybe widen the remit of the PCA so it goes from just you giving a recommendation to maybe you bringing the charge yourself?
Well, I think before we go there, I think we need a discussion with the police service and us and the politicians or whoever's in power to understand what we want to do and how we want to do it. That's one way of doing it. Getting the PCA that extra power to go ahead and lay the charge and maybe even prosecute the matter.
So what is the conversation? What is that conversation? What should it look like? How do we, because we need to move forward. We need to move the goalpost forward. Right now, so Michelle, you're going to get the file hopefully by Monday. And and if you don't get the file, I'm messaging you because I'm going to do a TikTok video and I'm going to use whatever I can do in my space to generate the pushback that needs to happen. But then all that you're going to be doing is investigating to prove that they didn't do their job. And
that will go on for months, if not years.
What we want is we want them to do their job. So we want something. So if it is that the Police Complaints Authority have good people, they are doing their job, we need to move the conversation forward. So who do we need to bring to the table? What does the conversation need to look like for the next step to happen?
Marshall, let me give you an example. We are now involved in inquests. We are now an interested party in inquests. So before in the past, you had the inquest come and, you had the police officers come and they didn't have witnesses, they had no file, they had nothing. We now, in police-involved shootings, have a very thick file because we have done the investigation and we have a very good file and we have a lot of evidence. We are attending court now, and what's happening? It's been adjourned, this one here, not here. It's the same thing. So we are doing our job again, and the courts this time, in the inquest court, not all the time through the fault of the coroner or whatever, but witnesses are not showing up, police officers are not showing up, etc.
Police officers are not showing up.
So again, we have something there that could finish within a month. It's going to take 2 years to finish. So, you understand? So it's a whole big question, a whole that has to determine what do we do with the PCA's evidence that going forward.
Marsha, in terms of the lobbying that you're talking about, we have to be very grateful to you and other media personalities and journalists and so that are willing to join the advocacy. So when you ask what is the strategy is to have the conversations, and not only conversations, but very loud conversations. And when you are having this type of discussion, we need to be focusing on results as opposed to excuses. So I'm not saying to put the TTPS in a position where they feel that they're being attacked or that they're feeling constantly criticized, right? I don't think that is going to be productive. But maybe they need to change the narrative, because some of these comments that they have been making, I really don't think it is easily digestible. And maybe the conversation needs to be, let's hear about results and let's don't hear about excuses, because that is the constant rhetoric. And that's why you and other people are getting frustrated with the process. So somebody needs to say in PCD why they decided not to discipline the officers and why these are not matters that are attracting discipline. Why are they only training people to investigate an assault? And this is why I have a little bit of a problem. Domestic violence crimes are mostly summary offenses. And when I say summary offenses, that means the lesser offenses. And it's not complicated. It's not a complicated case. So for me to hear in 2024 that you are still training officers how to investigate a matter, that means you're training them how to investigate an assault, how to investigate a wounding, how to investigate a fight, how to investigate a cuss case, how to investigate verbal threats, how to investigate possession of a firearm, how to investigate use of an offensive weapon. What they need the training on is how they engage with these vulnerable victims, right? But how long is that going to go on for? The first manual that was published from the Attorney General's office was in 2003. That's 20 years ago. So you mean to tell me you still need to train people on how to deal with vulnerables? I have a little problem with that. And when I say little, I'm being sarcastic, right? That is not digestible. And we have so much technology available to us. We have so many experts available to us, right? This is not a narrow field that, it now came about. This has been going on as you started off the program talking about. So we have many experts and many people with experience in this field. So that is where I have a little bit of a problem digesting some of what I've been hearing about training. Training is not Trump, right? Like it is not, when I say Trump, I don't mean the politician, right? I know Mr. Griffith is on the show, right? But I don't mean that. You know what I mean by Trump? They can't lash out that as Trump and expect to get an award, right? You have to do better than that.
If I could, excuse my anger. That was because of what Michelle was saying. Cuba just equalized on Trinidad and Tobago, so I was a little peeved. What happened, however, Michelle, is that the training for police officers in this type of crime, it is a specific type of training, and it was mind blowing for us. From prior to Gary Griffith, we believe that any police officer could deal with this by just doing basic training. I got Mayor Rudy Giuliani and partners, brought them into Trinidad and Tobago, brought in the NYPD, and this group, they were trained specifically to understand how to deal with this type of crime. Because how you speak to a female who has just been battered or raped, you have to understand how to speak to her. The more if you speak in the wrong manner, she's going to close up. You have to speak to her in such a way for her to remember everything. And all of these persons, the majority of them who got that specific type of training have all left the gender-based violence unit. So you're back now and now. So who is going to train these persons? This is a special type of training that is not in Trinidad and Tobago. Trust me on that. So it's not about customer service or public relation. And it's a problem that we've had, not just in the police service, the defense force. You send someone to United Kingdom, you spend $5 million to train to do communication, you bring him down to be in charge of the kitchen. So Claire Guy Allen understood this. That gender-based violence was working. We got a massive spike in reports, and I thought, well, we're doing the wrong thing. It was just the opposite. NYPD said, when women start understanding that they can trust the police, you're going to start getting them to make more reports. And then now you have to pinpoint the perpetrators by constantly letting them know we are watching you, we are monitoring you. We started going to your home. Somebody beat you, your husband beat you. We don't want you to come to the station. We will come to your home. It was a customer service delivery. All of that now has virtually been shut down. You're telling the women now, you have a report, just go to a station. It doesn't work that way. It's causing the lack of trust, and we have to bring it back. My final point on that, again, going back to the PCA, it is just legislation to change that the persons who have the authority in the PCA, police officers who they would select, have the authority to charge. It is not no big maths that you have to change that. If you ask Michelle or David, the PCA is a fire hazard in this country. The number of files that they have just on hold, waiting, and it is hundreds upon hundreds every year that the police will deliberately, or based on bad management, based on not training, they will just hold it for years until the matter dies. And because of that, it means that that situation where the officers realize that there's no longer a situation where I can now be culpable. I will wait my time. It will drag on. This one, Michelle, I mean, I love to hear Michelle talking. She expects that to come on Monday. I will talk to you by Christmas, and that matter will still be investigated.
Well, guys, it's 6 o'clock. Maybe we should have just had you guys on from 4 o'clock because we've run out of time. David, I'm so sorry. We didn't even get to talk about all the different the different arms of police other than domestic violence, but it is 6 o'clock. So thank you very, very much, Michelle. Keep up the good work. And I really hope that we can see some big changes, and we're not seeing once again allegations where a mom is slit, throat is slit, and she's saying she's made reports, and just waiting on the TTPS to act. So guys, thank you very much.
Masha, come to football next week Friday. I have something for David. You'll have to report to the football violence unit.
Next week Friday. Remind me. Okay, guys.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you, Masha.